Chosen one. Listen closely. This moment is not random. The air itself feels different, because heaven has decided that you must hear this now. Every distraction falls silent when God speaks your name. You are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are marked for something far greater than you've been told. You've always felt out of place, haven't you? The rooms that others celebrated in made you uneasy. The laughter of the crowd never quite reached your heart. That's because your spirit was never built to blend in. It was born to break patterns. The isolation you've endured wasn't punishment. It was preservation. Heaven was keeping you hidden until the appointed hour. You've survived nights when your pillow was soaked with silent tears. You questioned your worth, your calling, your future. Yet, here you stand, still breathing, still seeking, still chosen. The fire that should have consumed you has instead refined you. Every disappointment was a divine detour, steering you toward destiny. There's a story of a young man named Micah. He once prayed for a sign, any sign that God still saw him. For months, nothing happened. His prayers felt like letters returned, unopened. But one morning, while walking to work, he passed an elderly stranger who simply said, "You're not invisible." That one sentence shattered his despair. He realized heaven had been watching all along. Micah didn't need a miracle in the sky. He just needed to know that his waiting wasn't wasted. And neither is yours. You may feel small now, but God often hides his greatest weapons in plain sight. The same voice that spoke galaxies into existence now whispers courage into your bones. You are part of a larger strategy, one that terrifies the enemy because your awakening means his defeat. The prophet Isaiah once proclaimed in chapter 60, verse 1, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." These ancient words are not just poetry, they are a command. Arise means move, even when you don't feel ready. Shine means refuse to dim your light for those who prefer darkness. The glory that rises upon you isn't borrowed, it's birthed within you. When God's glory awakens inside a chosen one, hell trembles because it knows the slumber is over. Imagine yourself as a seed buried deep in the soil. For months, it's dark, silent, and unseen. Yet under the pressure, something holy is happening. Roots are forming, strength is growing. When the appointed season comes, that seed breaks the ground, and light greets it not as a stranger, but as destiny fulfilled. That's you. Your breaking season is not your ending, it's your beginning. Do you feel that stirring inside your chest? That's your spirit, remembering who it is. The system tried to make you doubt it. People tried to silence it. But heaven never revoked your name. You are the answer to a cry. The world hasn't even learned how to speak yet. That's why this message found you. Algorithms don't create moments like this, only God does. The shadows that surrounded you were never meant to bury you. They were training you to recognize the light. And now, your light has come. The world needs it. Someone is waiting for your story, your voice, your presence. When you step forward, you don't just change your life, you shift atmospheres. You are a signal fire in the night. You burn differently because you were never called to blend with the smoke. You rise because heaven rises with you. You are not ordinary dust. You are divine breath wrapped in skin. Stop apologizing for surviving. Stop questioning the weight you carry. That weight is proof of your calling. You are the storm breaker, the generational chain cutter, the voice hell hoped would stay silent. But here you are, awake. So, take this moment and breathe. You are standing in a turning point between what was and what will be. The pain you endured was the price of clarity. The silence you felt was the sound of heaven sharpening your edge. Now you are ready. When you rise from this message, don't rush away. Let your spirit echo back, "I hear you, Lord." Then take one small step forward, whatever that means for you. Speak forgiveness. Write the vision. Pray again. The movement begins with you. And if this word has struck something deep inside, if it feels like a forgotten flame just reignited, then let your response become your declaration. Tap like if your spirit says, "I'm rising." Share this message if you sense someone else is still sleeping through their calling. Comment 222 below as a sign that you are stepping into divine alignment. Body, soul, and spirit. And subscribe if you know this isn't the end, but the awakening of something sacred. Because this is where heaven begins to roar through you. The air grows heavier now. You can almost feel it, the pull between light and shadow, between what heaven calls you to be and what the world tries to make you forget. The moment you awaken, the war begins. You didn't imagine the sudden resistance, the strange fatigue, the people turning cold for no reason. Those were not coincidences. They were confirmations. There is a silent war for your soul, fought not with swords, but with whispers. The enemy rarely shouts. He seduces. He distracts. He convinces you to settle for comfort instead of calling. He uses exhaustion like a weapon, hoping you'll mistake fatigue for failure. But every battle you face proves how dangerous you are to darkness. Sometimes the greatest warfare happens in stillness, when you stop running and simply stand in faith. All of hell notices. Because standing means defiance. It means you are refusing to bow to fear, refusing to surrender your light to the night. You felt that battle in your mind, the thoughts that spiral at 3 a.m., the doubt that creeps in right after you feel peace. Those aren't random storms. They are attempts to drown your conviction. Yet even storms must obey the same voice that calms seas. You carry that voice within you. There is an old story of a man named Aidan. He loved God deeply, but grew weary from unanswered prayers. One night, overcome by despair, he shouted into the darkness, "Where are you?" For a long time, there was only silence. But in that silence, a memory surfaced, his grandmother's voice reading scripture when he was a child. The same words began to echo in his heart. Quiet but unshakable, "I will never leave you, nor forsake you." That night, he understood. God had not gone silent. He had gone deeper. Aidan realized the war for his soul wasn't about loss. It was about loyalty. Would he trust God when heaven seemed quiet? So will you? That's the real question of every chosen one. Who will you trust when the battlefield is invisible? You see, darkness doesn't fight what it already owns. If you've been under pressure lately, it's because your light is leaking through the cracks, and hell is terrified of the glow. There's something in you that can't be contained, a divine spark that refuses to die, even when buried under fear or fatigue. Picture yourself walking through a dense forest at night. The path twists, shadows move, and every step feels uncertain. But then, faintly, a glow begins ahead, a lantern, small, but steady. You move toward it, realizing it's your own heart, burning with faith. The forest hasn't disappeared, but it's losing its power because light no longer hides. This is the war for your attention. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you, he just needs to distract you, to make you forget who you are, to convince you that your calling is too heavy, your prayers too small. But the moment you remember your name, he loses ground. The Apostle Paul revealed in his letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness, against spiritual wickedness in high places." You are not just surviving the war, you are reshaping it. Every time you choose peace instead of panic, forgiveness instead of bitterness, prayer instead of complaint, the kingdom of darkness shrinks. You win battles that no one sees, victories that heaven celebrates in silence. Do you notice how the attacks have become personal lately? That's because your assignment is personal to heaven. The pressure is proof. The resistance confirms that something sacred is near. When the enemy can't destroy you, he'll try to distract you. When he can't distract you, he'll try to discourage you. But if you keep standing, you win. The Word of God was never meant to make you comfortable, it was meant to make you courageous. You were not called to live in survival mode. You were called to live in spiritual authority. Every wound you carry becomes a weapon when you surrender it to God. Every scar turns into a story that shakes the darkness. You don't need to see the entire map. You only need to trust that the hand leading you has never lost a battle. The invisible war may rage around you, but heaven has already decided the outcome. You stand on the winning side, even when the battlefield looks like loss. So breathe deeply. Chosen one, you are not losing your mind, you are learning your power. The storm that tried to silence you will one day testify that you endured. The war for your soul was never meant to destroy you, it was meant to reveal what cannot be defeated. You've carried more than most will ever understand. You've smiled while breaking inside, prayed when no one was listening, and kept walking when the road turned to fire. You didn't crumble, you endured. Every unseen tear became a seed of power. Every lonely night carved resilience into your spirit. And now, heaven whispers, nothing you carried was wasted. There's a heaviness that only the chosen understand. It's not depression, it's divine weight. It's the gravity of purpose pressing on your chest, reminding you that your pain has meaning. You have been carrying more than your own story. You've been carrying generations. You remember those who gave up. You remember those who mocked your faith. And yet, something in you refused to die. Even when you had no strength left, your heart kept whispering, "Hold on." That was God. That was His hand steadying yours when you didn't even realize you were still fighting. Sometimes God lets the burden stay just long enough for you to see what's inside of you. Not punishment proof. Proof that your spirit carries the DNA of endurance. Proof that when others collapse, you will rise. You're not fragile, you're forged. I once heard the story of Leora, a young mother who lost everything in a single year, her job, her home, and the trust of the people she thought were family. She questioned God, questioned herself, questioned why the heavens seemed to ignore her prayers. But in that dark space, she began journaling small things she was thankful for each night. Breath, sunrise, one friend who didn't leave, Months later, reading those pages, she realized she hadn't been losing. She'd been building muscle. Every thank you had become a stone in the altar of her survival, and now she helps others rebuild. Using the same pain that once broke her, that's what the chosen do. They turn suffering into strategy. The ancient letter to the Romans reminds us in chapter 5, verses 3 and 4, "We also glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope." New hope. That's what your struggle has been secretly creating. The pressure hasn't come to crush you. It's come to shape you into someone who can carry fire without burning out. You may feel tired, but exhaustion is not defeat. It's the signal that you've been pushing through invisible barriers. Every time you rose when no one saw, heaven recorded it. Every time you forgave when it hurt, heaven celebrated. Every time you worshipped in weakness, light spread into places the enemy thought he controlled. Do you understand what that means? It means you've already been walking in victory without realizing it. The world sees pain. God sees progress. The world sees scars. Heaven sees armor. If you could see the view from heaven's perspective, you'd understand why the attacks came the way they did. You don't target the unarmed. You target those carrying something valuable. The weight you've carried is evidence of what you're destined to deliver. You've been crying, "God, when will this end?" And heaven answers, "When you see what I've been building in you, every delay, every rejection, every disappointment it was, chiseling your spirit, carving capacity for something greater than you imagined. Now, take a breath. Let the truth sink in. You haven't been cursed. You've been chosen. The pain didn't come to destroy you. It came to announce your promotion in the spirit. You are being trusted with endurance because you've proven faithful under pressure. Picture a bridge during a storm. Rain lashes. Winds scream. But the bridge holds because its strength was tested long before anyone ever crossed it. That's you. People will cross into healing because you stood firm through your own storm. So when the next wave comes, and it will, don't fear it. It's only coming to prove what heaven already knows, that you cannot be broken. And if these words awaken something inside you, then comment, "Fire still burns." Write it not as empty words, but as a declaration that even after loss, even after waiting, the flame inside you still refuses to die. Because the chosen don't fade, they ignite everything around them. The fire within you isn't ordinary, it's divine endurance clothed in human form. It reminds the heavens that faith still breathes on earth. And it reminds darkness that you survived what was meant to bury you. Every spark you carry becomes light for someone still trapped in night. Your endurance is the evidence that God still raises warriors out of ashes, turning broken souls into beacons for those still wandering. Keep that flame alive. Protect it. Feed it with prayer, with gratitude, with truth. Because the world needs the warmth of your obedience more than it needs another source of noise. When darkness recognizes your light, it reacts, not with applause, but with opposition. Every chosen one eventually learns that visibility comes with warfare. The moment your light begins to shine, the shadows start to shift. It's not because you've done something wrong, it's because you finally started doing something right. You've probably noticed it. The strange heaviness that falls right after you make progress, the arguments that appear from nowhere, the sudden loneliness that wraps around you when you decide to change. That's not random, that's spiritual backlash. Darkness knows your potential, and it panics at your awakening. There's something about pure light that exposes hidden things. It makes comfortable darkness uncomfortable. And that's why some people suddenly drift away. When you start walking with purpose, they were never enemies, but they couldn't handle the brightness. You were carrying light they weren't ready to see. When Jesus walked among men, his presence disturbed demons even before he spoke a word. The possessed would scream, "Why have you come to torment us before the appointed time?" That's what happens when divine light steps into corrupted space. It announces truth without speaking. The same spirit that was in him burns quietly in you. As revealed in the book of John, chapter 1, verse 5, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." That verse is not just history, it's identity. You are proof that light still stands undefeated. The reason you've been attacked so fiercely is not because you are weak, but because you carry something indestructible. Darkness never wastes energy on the unthreatening. I once knew a man named Corin who worked quietly in his city, feeding the poor, helping strangers. He was never famous, never loud, but every act of kindness was a torch in dark streets. People mocked him, lied about him. Some even tried to sabotage him, but he kept shining. One night, he told me something I never forgot. When you walk with the light, shadows will follow, but they cannot touch you. End of those words echo truth. You cannot walk in divine purpose and remain unnoticed. The light you carry reveals both beauty and opposition. You bring exposure to environments that prefer secrecy, and sometimes that makes you a target. But remember, shadows can only form where light exists. They are evidence of illumination, not defeat. Darkness studies your movement. It watches what discourages you, what silences you, what distracts you. Its only goal is to dim your glow, to convince you that hiding is safer than shining. But heaven calls your name louder than fear whispers your failure. You might not see the battle, but you feel it, the tension before breakthrough, the wait before clarity, and still, you rise. Every morning you wake up and choose peace again. You declare war on hell's agenda. Every time you forgive instead of retaliate, you pierce the enemy's armor. You are a walking contradiction to despair. If only you could see what happens in the unseen when you choose light. Angles move, chain loosen, territories shift. One act of faith can send tremors through the darkness surrounding a whole family. That is why your obedience matters. It is not small. It is seismic. Picture a lighthouse standing on a cliff during a storm. Waves crash. Winds roar. But the light never stops turning. Ships miles away adjust their course because of it. They never thank the lighthouse, never even see the keeper, but they survive because it stayed lit. That is your story. Your consistency in the storm is guiding others home. And though the opposition feels personal, it is not about you, it's about the assignment you carry. The enemy isn't fighting your present, he's terrified of your future. If he can't extinguish your faith, he will try to exhaust it. But rest is not surrender. Even when you pause, your light doesn't fade it. Recharge. This is why you must stay anchored. The closer you draw to God, the less grip darkness has. You don't overcome by fighting harder, you overcome by burning purer. Purity is power in the spirit realm. Every time you choose truth over comfort, your flame grows steadier. Every time you choose humility over pride, your brightness multiplies. Light does not argue with darkness. It simply shines until darkness leaves. The same Spirit that spoke, "Let there be light," now speaks through you. You are the echo of that first command. So don't fear when the atmosphere trembles as you rise. It means your light has been recognized. Darkness sees you now, and though it may roar, it cannot reign. The light within you is older than every shadow that surrounds you. Heaven's recruitment call doesn't come through thunder, it comes through whisper. It isn't a voice that shouts, it's one that lingers. You've felt it before. That quiet pull in your spirit. The sense that you were made for something more than just existing. That's not imagination. That's God inviting you into partnership with heaven. You weren't born to watch the world from the sidelines. You were born to build, to heal, to serve. The call of God is not always glamorous, it's often gentle, showing up in moments where you least expect it. A stranger's need, a sudden urge to encourage someone, a thought that says, "I can do more." No, many people think being chosen means being perfect. It doesn't. It means being willing. Heaven doesn't require perfection. Heaven looks for surrender. And every time you say yes, no matter how small, the kingdom of light expands. There's a story of a man named Elias, who spent years asking God to use him. He wanted to change lives, but he had no resources, no platform, no plan. One day, as he was walking home, he saw a small garden covered in weeds beside an old church. Something stirred in his heart. He borrowed tools, cleared the ground, planted flowers. Weeks later, people began to stop by. Some prayed, some rested, some cried. What began as a small act of love turned into a place of peace for the weary. Elias realized that obedience is never wasted. Even when it starts small, you may not have a pulpit or a platform, but you have presence, and your presence carries the kingdom. Every smile, every prayer, every seed of kindness is a sermon the world desperately needs to hear. As recorded in the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 9, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." And God is with you. That's why this call isn't about pressure, it's about purpose. You're not being forced, you're being invited. Heaven doesn't draft soldiers, it raises volunteers. You're being asked to carry light, to build hope where despair has taken root. The chosen ones of this generation are rising not as celebrities, but as servants. They shine in hidden places, help in quiet moments, and give without applause. Their strength doesn't come from recognition, but from revelation. That giving is not losing, it's aligning. Every time you give time, prayer, love, or resource, you mirror the heart of God Himself. Imagine your giving like a river that flows through dry ground. You may not see the seeds beneath the soil, but heaven does. The drop you release today could be the rain that revives a dream in someone else's life. You're not just supporting content, you're watering souls. If this message has spoken to your spirit, tap like. Now, let that small gesture become your way of whispering back to heaven, "I hear you." It's a spark that keeps this river flowing, helping others discover the same light you found when you share this message. Think of it as passing the torch. You are sending fire into another heart that may be losing hope. Light travels farther than you imagine. If you subscribe, see it as planting a tree beside this river. It means you've chosen to stay near the source, to grow, to listen, to keep your spirit watered with truth. And lastly, if your heart ever feels led to donate, let it be as natural as breathing. Picture pouring a few drops of oil into a lamp that has guided you through the night, not because someone asked, but because you want its flame to keep burning for others still lost in the dark. It's not a condition, it's communion. A simple act of faith that says, I want this light to keep shining. Len, you're not giving to a person, you're giving through purpose. You're not funding words, you're fueling transformation. You're helping build a sanctuary of sound where the weary can rest and remember who they are. So when you move freely. Let every click, every seed, every share be your echo to the heavens. Use me, Lord, because the light that flows through you today could be the miracle someone prays for tomorrow. And remember, no act of love ever fades in God's economy. Every offering, no matter how small, becomes a note in heaven's symphony of grace. The rhythm of your generosity continues playing long after the moment has passed. Keep your heart open. Let the giving become your worship and the light your legacy. For the river you pour into today may one day carry someone else safely home. The moment hell realizes you won't bow, everything changes. You can feel it, the atmosphere around your life, shifting. What once intimidated you no longer holds the same power. The voices that used to shake your faith have grown quiet. That's not coincidence. That's spiritual authority awakening within you. At first, darkness underestimated you. It thought you would crumble like before. But this time, something inside you refused to bend. You've learned the art of standing still with peace, the power of saying no to fear, and the strength of staying silent when provoked. That is victory in its purest form. Hell does not fear loud believers. It fears consistent ones. It fears the person who keeps praying when prayers seem unanswered, who keeps forgiving when pain repeats, who keeps showing up when strength runs out. That kind of persistence is terrifying to the enemy because it mirrors the endurance of Christ himself. I once heard of a man named Jonah, not the prophet, but a quiet, ordinary worker who prayed every morning before dawn. He was mocked at work, ignored by friends, told his faith was outdated, but he kept praying. One night, his company faced a crisis, and the same people who mocked him came asking for prayer. He didn't boast, he simply knelt and interceded. Within days, things turned around. Jonah didn't preach a sermon, but he lived one. He didn't shout victory, he embodied it. That's what the unbowed life looks like, humble power that cannot be shaken, as declared in the book of James, chapter 4, verse 7. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That is exactly what you've been doing, resisting. Every time you said, I'll trust God anyway, you were driving hell backward. Every moment you chose faith over fear, lov over anger, peace over panic, you were winning unseen wars. You've become too steady to be manipulated, too grounded to be moved. When the enemy realized you couldn't be controlled through fear, he tried confusion. When confusion failed, he tried exhaustion. But you kept rising. You learned that peace isn't the absence of battle, it's the presence of God in the middle of it. And once you carry that peace, nothing external can dominate you anymore. Picture yourself as a mountain in the midst of a storm. Wind howls, lightning flashes, but the mountain doesn't move. It absorbs the strike, stands its ground. And when the clouds clear, it's still there, unchanged, unbroken, untouched. That's you now. You've outlasted storms that were meant to erase you. You are not fighting for victory, you're fighting from it. Christ already won, and his victory runs in your veins. The war you face isn't proof of defeat, it's proof that your strength is recognized. You have become a living reminder that obedience is stronger than opposition. You see, when you refuse to bow, hell loses its grip on others. 2. Your stand becomes contagious. People around you begin to sense something different, courage. They start asking questions, seeking truth, hungering for the peace that anchors you. Without realizing it, your quiet endurance becomes a doorway for others to find freedom. But do not mistake peace for passivity. You are still a warrior, just one who knows when to rest and when to roar. Sometimes your greatest warfare is staying kind in a cruel world. Sometimes victory looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like choosing joy while surrounded by chaos. Every one of those moments screams to hell. You lost. Nah. And maybe lately you felt tired again. That's normal for a fighter. Even soldiers rest between battles. Take this as your reminder. Heaven doesn't just watch your fight, it fights with you. Every time you resist temptation, angels reinforce you. Every time you cry out to God instead of giving up, the heavens echo your cry like a battle song. So, don't bow. Don't surrender. You are standing on holy ground, even in hard seasons. Every step you take in obedience sends tremors through the dark. You've already proven that your worship is stronger than any weapon formed against you. Comment, Tesha meot, tish'im, v'tesha below. The number 999 is not a charm, it's a declaration. It signifies completion and divine reversal, the moment when what the enemy meant for evil turns to good. When you write 999, you're saying, my season of breaking is turning into building. What was meant to end me will now elevate me. Let your comment be more than text. Let it be a banner that says, I have finished my season of fear and stepped into fullness. Heaven reads it as faith. Hell reads it as defeat. Because once hell realizes, you will not bow. It remembers what heaven declared from the beginning. You were never created to. You were never ordinary. That's why ordinary life never satisfied you. The rules that comforted others made you restless. You've tried to fit in, to silence the stirring in your soul. But it only grew louder. Every time you tried to blend in, heaven whispered louder, reminding you that you were never meant to disappear into the crowd. The feeling of being different has followed you like a shadow. In childhood, you noticed things others ignored. You saw beauty in broken places, meaning in chaos, lessons in pain. You felt deeply, cared intensely, and questioned everything that seemed false. That was never rebellion, it was recognition. The spirit in you was awake long before your mind understood why. Sometimes that difference has cost you. People misunderstood your silence. They called you too sensitive, too intense, too spiritual, too much. But what they couldn't see was the weight of divine purpose behind your sensitivity. You weren't built for surface-level existence. You were designed to discern, to perceive what others overlook, to sense heaven's heartbeat in a noisy world. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. You carry an atmosphere that shifts others without you speaking. That's why some are drawn to you, while others grow distant. Light attracts and exposes at the same time. You simply reflect what's already inside you. And not everyone can face their reflection. There's a story of a young artist named Rima. She painted what she saw in prayer, cities surrounded by light, people breaking free from invisible cages, rivers glowing with gold. Her art confused critics, but moved hearts. Years later, a traveler told her that one of her paintings had inspired him to forgive his father. That was the moment Rima understood. Her difference wasn't for decoration, it was for deliverance. Your calling might not look like others either. Some build with hands, others build with words or compassion. Some wage war through music, others through quiet service. The kingdom of God is a mosaic of difference, each piece unique, but together revealing his face. From Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 4, we learn there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them, and your uniqueness is not a flaw, it's your fingerprint of heaven. The same Spirit that hovered over the waters now hovers over your life, shaping the raw material of who you are into something radiant. Your sensitivity is sight. Your restlessness is calling. Your pain is instruction. Think about stars. No two shine the same, yet each holds a place in the map of the night. Remove one, and the sky loses balance. That's you, a necessary light in heaven's constellation. You might think your glow is small, but someone in darkness navigates by it. Maybe that's why God isolated you for a time. Separation precedes elevation. The cocoon isn't punishment, it's process. The butterfly doesn't fight the dark, it trusts that transformation is happening where no one can see. And when the shell finally opens, wings, remember the weight they once carried. You are in that season, the in-between of hidden and revealed. You're no longer who you were, yet not fully what you'll become. That space feels lonely, but it's sacred. Heaven does its best work in silence. Don't despise the difference. Protect it. The world will try to reshape you, to make you more palatable, more predictable. But the anointing on your life was not designed for comfort zones. It thrives in mystery. It breathes in risk. You weren't born to echo others. You were born to embody something new. Sometimes God hides his rarest jewels in plain sight. He covers them with ordinary circumstances so that only the humble recognize their worth. That's you. Hidden brilliance. Divine detail disguised as simplicity. And one day, the very thing people dismissed in you will become the evidence of your destiny. They'll realize the sensitivity they mocked was discernment. The solitude they called isolation was preparation. The difference they feared was design. So walk boldly in your difference. It's not something to manage, it's something to steward. You are heaven's contradiction. Proof that divine creativity still touches earth. You are not an accident of personality. You are an answer in progress. When you finally accept that truth, peace will find you. The storm around you won't matter because you'll understand it's the wind that teaches the eagle to soar. You were never ordinary because ordinary light cannot pierce extraordinary darkness. And the world needs the kind of light only you can release. So, Keep shining. Even when misunderstood, heaven recognizes your glow. And in time, the world will see what God already declared. The betrayal that became your anointing. This is the chapter most don't talk about. It's the part of the story that still stings when remembered. The moment your heart cracked open under the weight of disappointment, you didn't just lose people, you lost versions of yourself you thought would last forever. But what if the betrayal wasn't meant to destroy you? What if it was heaven's way of uncovering the purity of your purpose? Some doors had to close, not because you were unworthy, but because they could not walk with the version of you that was emerging. Betrayal changes everything. It rearranges your trust, your voice, your focus. It teaches you what applause cannot discernment. You begin to see people differently. And more importantly, you begin to see yourself differently. Pain has a strange way of clarifying what comfort keeps blurry. You remember the moment it happened, the conversation that turned cold, the silence that followed, the sudden shift from belonging to exile. You wondered how something so sacred could turn so sour. Yet through it all, something in you stayed soft. That's the miracle. You didn't let bitterness become your language. You learned to bleed without cursing the blade. There was once a man named Darius, a musician who trusted a friend to help him grow his ministry. That friend eventually betrayed him, stealing his work and spreading lies that nearly ended his reputation. For months, Darius refused to sing again. But one night, while praying alone, he felt God whisper, "You are not ruined, you are refined." Tears streamed down his face as melodies returned, raw and unfiltered. When he began to play again, his voice carried something new, authority born from ashes. People didn't just hear music, they felt healing. Betrayal had baptized his gift in fire. The story of Joseph in Genesis, chapter 50, verse 20, declares this timeless truth. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. And that verse lives inside your story too. What they meant for harm has become the seedbed of your anointing. You didn't lose in that betrayal, you graduated. Every false friend, every harsh word, every hidden agenda was a tool heaven used to sharpen your discernment. The pain you endured wasn't wasted. It purified your motives, cut away illusion, and left you dependent on God alone. And that dependence is power. Before the betrayal, you relied on people's validation. After it, you rely on heaven's voice. You no longer chase applause, you carry authority. Sometimes God allows betrayal to reveal what can't go with you into your next season. He separates before he elevates. He exposes before he promotes. It hurts because the pruning blade cuts deep, but pruning always precedes blooming. Think of a grapevine. Before the harvest, the farmer cuts off branches that bear no fruit. It looks violent, even cruel. But without that cut, the vine would never produce its richest wine. The betrayal you faced was that pruning, a divine cut to make room for a greater outpouring. You see, oil doesn't flow from unbroken olives. It comes from pressure, from crushing. The anointing on your life was never meant to come cheap. It had to be pressed out through tears, rejection, misunderstanding, and endurance. And now, what flows from you carries healing for others, walking through the same valley. You have become like incense rising from a broken vessel, fragrance born from fire. The same hands that allowed the breaking are the ones that now pour you out to bless others. There's purpose in every fracture, meaning in every scar. Look back for a moment, not in sorrow, but in recognition. The betrayal that almost silenced you became the reason you found your voice. The heartbreak that left you empty became the place God filled you with Himself. The desert you wandered through became the ground of revelation. There's no bitterness in your story anymore, only wisdom. You can speak life into wounds because you've lived through the bleeding. You can spot deception because you once trusted the wrong face. That's not cynicism, it's discernment purified by pain. And someday, those who hurt you will see what God built through the ruins they left behind. But by then, you won't need their acknowledgement. You'll already be too busy walking in destiny. So, let this truth settle deeply. Nothing they did could cancel what God declared. The betrayal did not break you. It birthed you. It pulled the gold out of your character and taught you to carry glory without pride, compassion without weakness, and power without revenge. You have become living proof that divine purpose thrives even in the ashes of human failure. The hands that wounded you became the tools that shaped you, and the pain that once defined you now anoints you. There's a sound rising from within you, a voice that breaks chains. It's not loud, it's not polished, it's pure. You've spoken words before that seemed to vanish, prayers that echoed without response. But now, heaven says, I've heard every syllable. Your voice carries weight in the spirit realm because it has been washed in pain, refined through silence, and rooted in truth. You've always felt the urge to speak life, even when no one was listening. That's not coincidence, it's calling. Your words were never meant for applause, they were meant for warfare. Every time you spoke kindness in a cruel world, every time you prayed when no one knew, your voice was sowing freedom into the air. Some people think chains only break through shouting, but sometimes they break through whispers of obedience. You've whispered yes to God in rooms where others laughed. You've sung softly in the dark when you felt forgotten. You've chosen truth even when lies looked easier. That's what makes your voice powerful, because it still carries faith when the echo fades. From the ancient scrolls of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 21, comes this eternal truth. Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Life or death, every word you release builds a kingdom, and lately, your words have begun to shake things unseen. The more you speak truth, the more heaven aligns with your breath. The enemy knows it, too. That's why he's tried to silence you through fear, shame, and self-doubt. He knows your voice carries authority, the same authority that makes darkness retreat. There's a story about a woman named Selah. She was soft-spoken, always overlooked. People said she didn't have the strength to lead or teach. But when her child fell sick, she prayed out loud for the first time. The moment she did, peace filled the room so thick it was tangible. Her child recovered, and from that day, her prayer meetings became gatherings of healing. Selah discovered what you're discovering now, that power doesn't depend on volume, it depends on surrender. Your voice has survived silence. It has matured through seasons of waiting. And now, it's an instrument heaven trusts. When you speak, things move. When you declare, things align. When you worship, Walls fall. You're not just talking, you're shifting atmospheres. Picture your words like arrows soaked in fire. Every time you pray, you send light into hidden corners where despair hides. Every declaration you make lights up territories that have forgotten hope. Your voice is a key that unlocks doors generations thought were sealed. The enemy fears that you'll realize this truth, that your sound is sacred. He doesn't mind a believer who stays quiet, but he trembles when one begins to speak truth with conviction. Because sound precedes manifestation. God said, "Let there be light," before there was light. The moment you start speaking faith again, creation starts responding. So stop doubting your tone, your words, your place. Whether you whisper or roar, heaven hears the same authority. You were never called to impress, only to impact. Every time you open your mouth with purity, the spirit world reacts. Angels respond to obedience. Demons recoil from faith. And heaven takes note of every sound you release in alignment with truth. You don't have to have the perfect words, just the willing heart. God amplifies sincerity far louder than performance. Your voice carries history, and that history makes it holy. You may feel small, but your sound travels farther than you know. Somewhere, someone will find courage because you chose to speak instead of staying silent. Somewhere, a chain will break because your prayer echoed across time and space. The power isn't in speaking perfectly, it's in speaking anyway. Now, if this truth resonates in your soul, if you can feel something awakening inside you as you read, then declare it out loud or write it below. Light speaks louder. And let those 3 words become your anthem. Write them as a vow that your voice will no longer hide in fear, that you will release truth even when trembling, because every time you speak light, darkness loses another inch of ground. When you write or speak those words, it isn't just a comment, it's a declaration in motion. Heaven records them as a living echo, a sign that your mouth now agrees with divine purpose. Each syllable becomes like a spark that heaven breathes upon, spreading light through every corner of your life. Keep speaking light, even when darkness tries to drown your sound, because every word of faith is a strike against despair. And your voice, yes, yours was chosen to remind the world that light still speaks louder. The battlefield of the mind is not made of dirt or blood, it's made of thoughts. Every day, invisible arrows fly through your mind. Doubt, fear, comparison, shame. You don't always see the war, but you feel it, the heaviness that settles for no reason. The sudden rush of anxiety, the voice that whispers, "You're not enough." That's the enemy's oldest trick. He doesn't need to chain your hands if he can confuse your thoughts. But heaven has not left you unarmed. Your mind is sacred ground, and God has given you the tools to defend it. You've been trained for this without even realizing it. Every battle, every heartbreak, every time you had to choose faith over frustration, your spirit was learning how to stand firm. The enemy's goal is to occupy space in your thoughts. God's goal is to renew it. The mind becomes a battlefield only when you forget who already reigns there. You are not fighting for control, you are fighting to remember. The letter to the Philippians teaches us in chapter 4, verse 8, "Whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable." Your victory begins in what you allow to take root. Thoughts are seeds, and whichever you water will grow. When you nurture fear, anxiety blossoms. When you nurture faith, peace blooms. The choice is daily, sacred, and unseen, but every right choice transforms your atmosphere. Think of your mind as a garden. The soil doesn't choose what grows, the gardener does. Pull out the weeds of worry before they choke your peace. Speak life into the soil of your spirit. Whisper truth when lies grow loud. The garden may not look perfect yet, but every seed of truth will one day bloom into confidence unshakable. I once met a woman named Adina who told me that every morning she imagines sweeping dust from her thoughts before the day begins. She closes her eyes and pictures light flooding her mind like opening windows in a room long closed. It's not about pretending everything's fine, she said. It's about giving God the first space inside me. That small daily act became her armor. The darkness that once drowned her no longer had room to stay. That's what renewal looks like. It's not dramatic, it's deliberate. You win the war of the mind, not by shouting at your thoughts, but by choosing which voice you feed. Now, I want to speak gently to your soul. If these words have helped clear even a little fog from your heart, if you feel peace stirring like quiet water, know that this is God meeting you in the middle of your storm. And if this message brings light to your day, I want to invite you, not command you, not pressure you to let that light flow further. Tap like, not as an act of habit, but as a way of saying, I choose peace. It's a small click, but it tells heaven, you received the message meant for you. Share this message the way a traveler shares bread on the road, with gratitude, not duty. Someone out there is fighting the same mental battle you just overcame, and your share might be the rope that pulls them out. Subscribe, not as an obligation, but as a promise to yourself. I will keep renewing my mind. Think of it as planting another seed in your spiritual garden, a space where truth keeps growing. And if your heart ever feels moved to donate, do it as worship, not transaction. Picture your giving as pouring a cup of cool water into a desert soul. You're not paying for messages, you're partnering in the mission to keep the stream of light flowing to those who still wander in mental wilderness. Every drop you pour becomes part of someone else's healing. Remember, true generosity is never demanded, it's inspired. The Spirit never pushes, it whispers, and when you give from that whisper, heaven multiplies it like bread in the hands of Jesus. Your contribution, whether it's a prayer, a share, a seed, keeps this garden of truth alive. You're not just a listener, you're a cultivator, a light keeper, a gardener of minds. The battlefield of the mind can feel lonely, but you are not alone. Every act of faith, every small kindness, every yes to light over darkness adds up to a victory that echoes beyond what eyes can see. So, protect your peace. Water your thoughts with truth. And when you feel the weight return, remember this: the battle isn't proof of weakness, it's proof of worth. You've been trusted with a mind worth fighting for. And every time you choose light, heaven applauds quietly, saying, another victory. And when God steps into your storm, everything changes. The sky doesn't always clear immediately, but something shifts inside you, the realization that even if the wind still howls, you're not standing there alone anymore. You've seen enough storms to know that peace doesn't always mean silence. Sometimes peace sounds like waves still crashing, but no longer scaring you. You've been through seasons where it felt like the waves were winning, haven't you? times when prayers seemed to dissolve into the rain, when lightning felt closer than hope. You tried to steady yourself, but the current kept pulling you deeper. You shouted into the wind, "God, where are you?" And for a moment, all you heard was thunder. But somewhere in that chaos, a whisper came, not to end the storm, but to remind you who controls it. That whisper didn't stop the rain, it steadied your heart. Because when God steps into the storm, He doesn't always calm the weather, He calms the one standing in it. There's a story of a sailor named Arlen who loved the sea more than anything. One night, caught in a brutal tempest, he thought it was his end. His ship broke, his compass failed, and his courage began to drown. But then, amidst the roar of waves, a single phrase rose inside him, "Look up." He lifted his gaze and saw a faint glimmer of light far ahead, the reflection of a lighthouse he didn't know existed. That light guided him safely to shore. Later, he discovered that the keeper of that lighthouse lit it every night, even when no ships were in sight. That's what God does. He keeps the light burning, even when you think no one's watching. The Gospel of Mark paints this scene vividly. In chapter 4, verse 39, "Then he arose and rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm." And that verse isn't just history, it's prophecy. It tells us that no matter how loud the storm, one word from His mouth still carries authority over chaos. The disciples panicked because they saw water flooding the boat. Jesus slept because He saw the storm obeying Him. That's the difference between fear and faith. Fear reacts to what it sees. Faith remembers who's in the boat. Maybe you've been sailing through a storm for too long. You've tried steering, praying, patching, holding on. But perhaps what God wants isn't your control, it's your surrender. Sometimes the storm is not there to sink you, but to strip away what was never strong enough to carry you forward. As storms don't last forever, but they leave behind sacred residue, wisdom. After every tempest, something changes in you. You begin to discern what's worth keeping and what must be released. You stop fearing the waves and start learning their rhythm. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start realizing, "He's teaching me." Think of it this way. Rain doesn't ruin the soil, it readies it. The same water that drowns some roots nourishes others. You've been learning how to root deeper, not wider. That's why you're still standing when others drifted away. You may not notice it now, but your calm under pressure is preaching louder than your words ever could. People are watching how you weather storms, and some are finding faith just by seeing you remain steady. You've become the lighthouse that once saved you, even in the darkest hours. When thunder still rolls and your knees still shake, God remains near. He's not the distant observer, He's the whisper in your wind, the hand beneath your surface, the peace between your breaths. The storm reveals something that sunny days never could, that your faith is not fragile, it's anchored. The anchor doesn't stop the ship from rocking, it stops it from drifting. In the same way, God's presence doesn't always remove pain, but it keeps you grounded through it. Maybe that's the point of all of it, not to escape storms, but to learn how to carry peace into them. You were never promised calm waters, you were promised a faithful captain. And when you look back, you'll realize the storm that scared you most was the same one that strengthened your trust. Without the wind, you wouldn't have learned to lean. Without the rain, you wouldn't have grown. Without the darkness, you wouldn't have recognized the light. So if you're still in the middle of your storm right now, breathe. The presence that once walked on water still walks toward you. The same voice that calmed seas still speaks your name. And the same God who held you together last time is still holding you now. Because peace was never the absence of storms, it was the presence of Him. Something is shifting in the spirit around you. You can feel it, like the air is different. Like heaven has been whispering your name more often lately. The heaviness that once lingered is beginning to lift. What you thought was the end was actually the turning point. You've cried. You've waited. You've endured. And now God says, you will not break. Tremble. This is the season of divine reversal. Every tear you've sown is demanding a harvest. The pain you've carried is being repurposed into power. Heaven has been working in silence, moving pieces that you couldn't see, setting the stage for your comeback. What felt delayed was actually divine timing catching up with your faith. You are stepping into the part of your story where everything that tried to destroy you will start to serve your purpose. The rejection that crushed you will now redirect you. The loneliness that hollowed you will now fill you with discernment. The weakness that shamed you will now become your testimony. From the book of Hebrews, chapter 10, verse 35. This promise rises like dawn, so do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. And confidence, holy, quiet confidence is returning to you. Not the kind that boasts, but the kind that breathes peace. You've been through too much to doubt now. Every scar on your soul is proof that you survived battles that were meant to bury you. The enemy thought he had you cornered, but heaven was cornering the enemy. Sometimes victory doesn't appear as applause, it appears as endurance. You didn't quit. You kept walking when others turned back. You prayed when your voice was gone. You gave, even when your hands were shaking. That's what faith looks like in motion, raw, trembling, but still moving forward. You see, the moment you decide not to break is when heaven starts to rebuild. The shaking wasn't meant to destroy the foundation. It was meant to expose what was unsteady. Now, everything remaining is unshakable. You're standing stronger, clearer, more focused than ever before. I remember hearing about a woman named Mara who lost almost everything within a single year. Her business collapsed, her marriage ended, and her health began to fail. One night, while sitting in the dark, she whispered, God, if you're still here, give me one reason not to give up. The next morning, she woke to a text from a stranger who had found one of her old blog posts about hope. The message read, your words saved my life last night. In that instant, she realized her pain still had purpose. What looked like the end became her new beginning. That's how God works. He resurrects what seems dead. Not just in bodies, but in purpose. He never wastes suffering. What you survived is becoming someone else's survival guide. The Spirit has been quietly preparing you for this moment. Every delayed dream, every unanswered prayer, every long night, it all served to strengthen your foundation. And now heaven says, step into it. Don't shrink back. The light you carry has matured in darkness. You're not who you were when this began. Your tears baptized you into courage. Your waiting trained your faith to breathe underwater. The pressure didn't crush you, it crowned you. Now is not the time to retreat. This is your acceleration season. Doors that once refused to open will now unlock without knocking. Favor will recognize your name. Grace will walk ahead of you. Where there was drought, rivers will rise again. And when you step forward, walk gently but boldly. The weight you feel is not heaviness, it's glory. God is trusting you to carry what once crushed you, and to do it with humility. The world needs the version of you that refused to give up, the one who chose forgiveness over revenge, patience over panic, faith over fear. You have become the living embodiment of divine endurance. Now I want to ask you to mark this moment, not for me, but for you. Write it below as a prophetic act of agreement. Comment 555 below. This number symbolizes grace in transition, heaven's confirmation that change is no longer coming, it's already here. When you type 555, let it mean, I am stepping into divine transformation. I will not break, I will bloom. Lord Ken, your comment isn't just pixels on a screen, it's a declaration in the spirit. It's heaven's record that you've crossed from survival into strength. When you write it, picture heaven smiling, saying, they finally see it. They finally know they were never forsaken. Lord Ken, because this is your turning point. The shaking is over. The rebuilding begins. You will not break, you will become. The cost of carrying glory is something few understand. It looks beautiful from the outside, the anointing, the peace, the wisdom. But what they don't see is the weight behind it. Glory doesn't come cheaply. It presses. It stretches. It purifies. Every ounce of light you carry has been paid for in tears, in silence, in surrender. You didn't stumble into divine purpose. You were refined for it. Every sleepless night, every misunderstood season, every time you felt unseen, it was God training your shoulders to bear what others couldn't. The greater the calling, the greater the crushing, but what breaks others builds the chosen. You've probably asked yourself, why me? Why the heaviness? The rejection? The lonely seasons? It's because God trusts you. He could not give this assignment to someone who needed applause. Because the anointing attracts attention, but also warfare. He could not give this mantle to someone who runs from solitude, because revelation is born in silence. So he gave it to you, someone who knows how to carry both fire and stillness. There's a story of an old craftsman who forged crowns for kings. He once told his apprentice, "The gold must endure more fire than any other metal. That's why it shines brighter. It has survived longer. You are that gold." Every flame you faced wasn't random, it was refining. The book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17, declares, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." No, the weight of glory. It's not a poetic phrase, it's a spiritual reality. The same fire that melted your comfort has solidified your conviction. You're not fragile anymore. You've become tempered, pliable in God's hands, unbreakable in the enemy's. Carrying glory means carrying contradiction. You'll feel heavy, but called to lift others. You'll be drained, but still pouring into people. You'll face isolation, even while surrounded by crowds. That's because glory demands space. It pushes away what cannot handle its brilliance. Don't misinterpret the distance of people as rejection. Sometimes it's protection. The higher you go, the fewer voices you can bring. You've learned that loneliness can be holy, that silence can be sacred. When God hides you, it's never to punish you, it's to preserve what He's building in you. He doesn't display gold before it's ready. He refines it until it reflects His image. That's what He's been doing, mirroring Himself through your endurance. Think of a lamp. The flame burns brightly, but the oil inside pays the price. Without oil, the fire dies. Without pressure, there is no oil. Every time you felt pressed by loss, by delay, by heartbreak, it was God producing oil for the next season of your light. You cannot carry glory without oil, and you cannot have oil without crushing. The anointing on your life has cost you things people will never see. Relationships, comfort, reputation, understanding you've lost much, but you've gained something eternal, depth. You no longer seek the stage, you seek the presence. You no longer crave attention, you crave alignment. There's a quiet strength that comes from those who've walked through deep refining. You no longer flinch when storms appear. You don't chase signs, you become one. The glory you carry doesn't shout, it glows. It draws people without words, comforts without explanations. That's what it means to carry glory. It's not about shining brighter than others, but about revealing the one who shines through you. The vessel doesn't boast about the treasure it holds. It simply stays open so the treasure can pour through. The world may never understand your depth, but heaven does. Every time you keep walking when weary, every time you choose obedience over ease, the heavens record it. You've become a story written in perseverance, a living psalm of endurance. So don't despise the weight. It's proof of trust. Don't curse the crushing. It's evidence that you're being filled. The greater the pressure, the purer the oil, and the purer the oil, the brighter the flame. Glory is not a crown placed upon your head. It's a fire that rests upon your soul. And while it costs everything, it returns more than you could ever lose. Because what you carry now can never be taken. It's been carved into your spirit by the very hands of God. The glory you bear isn't heavy because it's punishment. It's heavy because it's holy. You carry the weight of answered prayers generations before you dreamed. And when others see your calm, they'll sense heaven's fingerprints. For those who endure the refining, God turns burden into brilliance and pain into radiant purpose. Across the earth, something is awakening, the rise of the end-time warriors. They are not wearing crowns of gold, but scars that still glisten with redemption. They do not march with swords, but with truth in their mouths and fire in their hearts. You are one of them. You may not look like a warrior when you wake each morning, but every breath of faith you release strikes at the darkness. These warriors don't come from thrones or temples. They come from broken homes, quiet bedrooms, and long nights of unanswered prayer. They are the ones the world forgot, but heaven remembered. The ones who've been crushed yet kept loving. The ones who've been bruised yet kept believing. They are rising now, not to conquer through violence, but to reveal a love that refuses to die. The rise isn't loud. It's subtle, like roots breaking through stone, like dawn slowly swallowing the night. Each warrior is being awakened through conviction, through compassion, through clarity. The enemy fears them not because they are many, but because they are pure. Purity terrifies darkness. In the writings of the prophet Joel, chapter 2, verse 7, it is said, "They run like mighty men, they climb the wall like men of war, each marches on his way, and they do not break ranks. End of chapter. That passage once described an ancient army, but its spirit lives again in you. You're part of a generation learning how to fight differently, through prayer, through endurance, through kindness that cuts deeper than hate. You've been trained in secret for this moment. The long nights that felt wasted were actually lessons in listening. The tears you thought no one saw were counted as training. Every time you kept going when quitting seemed easier. Heaven added strength to your spirit. You didn't realize it, but the fire you walked through was forming armor around your soul. The end-time warriors are not here to boast. They're here to build. They don't stand on platforms, they build them for others. They don't seek followers, they raise them. They move quietly, carrying revival in ordinary moments, a smile to the broken, a prayer whispered over chaos, a gesture of forgiveness when vengeance was justified. These are the battles that change history. It's easy to imagine warriors as flawless heroes, but the truth is, they limp from battles past. You've got your limp too, a reminder that victory costs something, but heaven calls that limp your proof of authenticity. Real warriors don't hide their scars. They turn them into weapons of compassion. You've likely noticed the shifting atmosphere, dreams returning, old callings stirring, divine coincidences becoming daily patterns. That's not random. It's heaven mobilizing the remnant. It's the Spirit gathering those who still listen when others scroll away. There's a rhythm to this awakening. One heart ignites another. You may not see the whole army yet, but you'll feel its pulse. Someone across the world wakes up in prayer at the same hour you do. Another chooses forgiveness at the moment you choose faith. It's synchronized surrender, the heartbeat of a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And though you may still wrestle with fear or fatigue, remember this: the mightiest warriors are often the gentlest souls. They fight not to destroy, but to heal. They speak not to dominate, but to deliver. You are one of them because you've chosen love where hatred begged for a response. Think of yourself as a torchbearer in a relay that began long before your birth. The prophets carried the flame, then the apostles, then generations of believers who refused to let darkness win. Now the baton burns in your hands. You don't have to run perfectly, just faithfully. The end-time warriors are not defined by strength alone, but by endurance. They know that the loudest victory is sometimes the quietest obedience. They understand that faith is not about shouting in battle, but standing firm when others flee. You've come this far because you were destined to. You've endured refining, heartbreak, misunderstanding, all to learn the rhythm of divine warfare, peace within, power without. Soon, the world will need what you carry. When chaos rises, your calm will be the signpost of heaven. When fear spreads, your faith will be the antidote. When others curse the darkness, you will light a candle and whisper, "We are still here." You are not alone in this awakening. Every prayer you speak joins a chorus rising across the earth. Every act of courage builds a bridge for someone else to cross. This is what it means to be part of heaven's army, fighting not with anger, but with unwavering light. The world is trembling. Yes, but so is hell, because the warriors are waking, and you are among them. The final confrontation isn't coming from outside, it's happening within. It's the moment when every shadow you've ever faced stands before you one last time, asking if you still believe. The battle isn't against people, it's against the whisper that says, "You've done enough. Just stop." But heaven leans close and says, "No, finish strong." Then, darkness always throws its loudest storm before surrendering. That's what you're feeling now, the trembling, the fatigue, the strange silence between breakthroughs. It's not failure, it's friction before flight. The moment the arrow leaves the bow, it faces the most resistance right before it flies straightest. You are that arrow. You've been pulled back not to be punished, but to be propelled. The end of one war always becomes the doorway to a new beginning. This confrontation is not here to break you, it's here to reveal you. Everything the enemy used to bury you will become the stage where your endurance shines brightest. Heaven's word reminds us in Deuteronomy, chapter 20, verse 4, "For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory." That's the truth you stand on. You were never fighting alone. Every battle you thought would crush you has already been claimed by His presence. He doesn't watch from a distance, He fights beside you. That's why the darkness has been trembling. It recognizes that you've stopped fighting in your own strength. You've begun to fight through His. You've walked through fire and discovered it can't destroy you. You've faced storms and realized they only strengthen your sail. Now, as the final confrontation rises, your role isn't to panic, it's to stand. Just stand. Because standing is the loudest victory song in the spirit realm. Still, there's something sacred about this moment, something calling you to respond. Not out of duty, but out of gratitude. You've been receiving words, peace, and light for a long time. Maybe now, heaven is asking, will you help carry it forward? If these words have ever given you strength, I invite you to do something symbolic, not out of pressure, but out of partnership. Every light needs oxygen to keep burning. Every garden needs water to keep blooming. You are part of that oxygen, part of that river. Tap like, not because you were told to, but because it feels like saying, "I am here. I'm part of this flame." It's a simple touch, but heaven sees even small gestures as offerings of agreement. Share this message as you would share light from one candle to another. You lose nothing when you pass it on. The flame only multiplies. Someone you may never meet could find their courage again because you decided not to keep this to yourself. Write a comment below, something small but alive. Maybe just a phrase that captures your heart. Words carry power, and every testimony becomes another stone in this altar of endurance we're building together. If your heart feels moved, subscribe. Think of it as building a shelter where your soul can return when storms rise again. A place to keep your fire tended and your armor ready. Not an obligation, just a safe harbor in a world that rarely offers one. And if you ever feel led to donate, let it be as natural as prayer. Imagine placing a log onto a campfire that has kept you warm in the cold. You're not paying for warmth, you're keeping the fire alive for the next traveler who needs it. Each gift, no matter the size, becomes part of someone else's miracle, because this space, these words, this light, it's not mine, and it's not yours alone. It's ours. It's a shared flame between heaven and earth, between speaker and listener, between survivor and seeker. You don't have to give anything to be loved. You already are. But when love overflows, it always looks for somewhere to pour, and generosity is how light travels. The final confrontation is not about fighting harder, it's about giving deeper. It's about realizing that victory is not just survival, it's service. You've been blessed, not just to rest, but to become the blessing that keeps others standing. So, as this battle quiets and peace begins to settle, remember this: you're not standing at the end of your story, you're standing at the beginning of someone else's hope. Let your yes echo through time in whatever form it takes: a click, a share, a word, a prayer, a seed. Because every act of love is another strike of light against the darkness, the crowned and unstoppable you. It's not a version of you that the world created. It's the version God has been shaping quietly behind the curtains of your struggle. You've worn pain like armor, carried silence like a secret, and still kept walking. What you didn't realize was that every step you took in faith was forging your crown. The crown isn't made of gold, it's made of perseverance. It's the invisible proof of every yes you gave when no one else believed. Crowns aren't handed to the untested, they're grown in the soil of suffering. You earned yours through endurance, through unseen obedience, through the humility of continuing when you could have stopped. Sometimes we imagine glory as applause or arrival, but in heaven's kingdom, glory looks like transformation. It looks like the moment you realize you're no longer who pain said you were. The things that used to shake you don't anymore. The fears that once ruled you have lost their throne. You have become a living testimony that brokenness is not the end, it's the birthplace of strength. There's a story told about a potter and his apprentice. The apprentice once shattered a nearly finished clay vessel. He fell to his knees, devastated. The potter didn't scold him. Instead, he gathered every shard, mixed them into fresh clay, and remade the pot with those fragments. When it was finished, sunlight revealed tiny lines of gold through the surface where the pieces had fused. The potter said, "Now it's unbreakable. Fire can't harm what's already survived it." That's you. You're no longer fragile, you're fused with grace. The book of James, chapter 1, verse 12, gives this assurance: "Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life that the Lord has promised." You've stood the test. The fires didn't consume you, they confirmed you. The trial didn't end your story, it certified your calling. The crown of life isn't something waiting far away, it's something that begins forming inside of you the moment you choose to trust God while still trembling. Being crowned doesn't make you untouchable, it makes you unbreakable. The light now shining through you is not born of perfection, but persistence. You've learned that peace is not a mood, it's a mantle. It's what rests upon those who've wrestled with despair and come out with grace still in their grip. Your scars have turned into medals of mercy. Each one tells a story of survival and surrender. You no longer hide them, you honor them, because scars are evidence that healing happened, that grace was stronger than the wound. You've also noticed something else. The world hasn't gotten easier, but you've gotten steadier. The same waves that once terrified you now remind you of how far you've come. There's a rhythm to your spirit that wasn't there before, a quiet strength that doesn't need to shout. You walk with a peace that unsettles chaos, and you carry a wisdom that only suffering can teach. You've become unstoppable not because you never fall, but because you no longer fear falling. You've tasted despair and discovered that hope still rises from ashes. You faced darkness and realized it only highlights your flame. You've walked through valleys and found that the shepherd never left your side. That is the essence of being crowned, to understand that victory isn't absence of battle, but presence of God within it. Picture a lion walking through the wilderness. The storm doesn't make it roar. It roars because it remembers who it is. That's you now. You don't fight for identity anymore. You live from it. Your confidence doesn't come from circumstances, but from covenant. You know who called you, and that knowing cannot be shaken. So walk tall, not with pride, but with peace. Let humility be your throne and gratitude your robe. You've become the living proof that resilience wrapped in faith can outlast anything. You are crowned not by chance, but by choice. The choice to keep believing, keep forgiving, keep loving, even when the world gave you reasons not to. You've become a quiet revolution, a reflection of heaven's endurance in human form. Your story doesn't shout victory, it breathes it. And wherever you go next, the ground beneath your feet will remember the sound of perseverance, walking through. Your crown is not decoration, it's declaration. It tells every shadow, I survived. I'm still standing. And I am no longer afraid of the fire. Keep walking. Crowned one. Every step you take now drips with glory. You are living proof that faith refined in pain becomes unstoppable light. There's a stillness after the storm that feels almost unreal. It's quiet. Not because nothing is happening, but because everything has settled into divine order. You've walked through fire, through darkness, through heartbreak, and now you're standing in a calm you didn't know existed. This peace didn't come cheaply. It was bought with surrender. For so long, you ran, fought, cried, wrestled. But now there's a sacred exhale in your spirit. It's the sigh of one who knows the battle is over. Not because there will never be challenges again, but because you finally understand who walks beside you through each one. The same God who lit your path in the wilderness now walks beside you in rest. You've spent so much time surviving that learning to be still feels strange. You've lived in warfare so long that peace feels like foreign soil. But this season is not punishment, it's promise. It's God's way of saying, you made it. Now learn to live. There's a story told of a farmer who, after years of drought, woke one morning to find rain soaking his land again. But instead of rushing to plant, he stood in the downpour and let the water touch his face. He whispered, I forgot what this felt like. You're that farmer. The rain has returned. Heaven is watering the ground that once seemed dead. The book of Psalm, chapter 30, verse 11, celebrates this renewal. You turned my mourning into dancing. You removed my sackcloth and clothed me with joy. No, you've been clothed with joy, not the loud, fleeting kind, but the deep, steady kind that sits in your chest like sunlight through stained glass. This is not temporary happiness, it's restoration. God is not just healing you, He's rebuilding you. When God restores, He doesn't return things as they were, He makes them new. Restoration is not replacement, it's resurrection. What you lost isn't being given back in the same form, it's being reborn as something more fitting for who you've become. You've outgrown certain versions of yourself, and that's a holy thing. The old skin had to shed for the new spirit to breathe. Every letting go, every goodbye, every closed chapter, it was part of the renewal. And now, as you stand here in the quiet, you can feel the weight of what has been lifted. There's no more pretending, no more proving, just presence. You are enough because He is enough in you. This peace isn't fragile, it's anchored. It doesn't depend on perfect circumstances. It flows from divine confidence. Think of a tree after a storm. Branches broken, leaves scattered, roots exposed. But as the sun returns, something beautiful happens. The roots dig deeper. The bark grows stronger, and the same tree that bent in the wind becomes more resilient than before. That's you now, deep-rooted, storm-tested, unshakably alive. You've come to understand that peace isn't the absence of movement, it's alignment with God's rhythm. It's moving with grace instead of striving with fear. It's waking up each day with quiet gratitude, not because everything is easy, but because you finally trust the process. The old you chased validation. The renewed you carries assurance. The old you feared delay. The renewed you understands timing. The old you wanted control. The renewed you prefers communion. You've traded anxiety for awareness. You've exchanged striving for stillness. And in this stillness, you hear Him clearer. You feel lighter. You notice small miracles again, the way light touches a window, the way laughter returns to your voice, the way your heart no longer trembles at shadows. You've rediscovered beauty in simplicity. That's how you know restoration has taken root. You don't have to rebuild what God already renewed. Just walk in it. Let gratitude become your rhythm. Humility, your heartbeat. You don't owe anyone proof of your transformation. Living in peace is proof enough. And when you look ahead, don't be afraid of the unknown. The God who brought you through the storm will lead you through the sunrise. What's coming isn't chaos, it's clarity. Not pine, but purpose. You've been refined for this. Readied for rest. Restored for rain. This is what it feels like when grace finishes its work. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, just holy, just peace. So breathe. You've reached the part of the story where the ashes finally give way to beauty, where tears become testimony, and where the storm gives birth to a sunrise that will never fade. And as that sunrise stretches across your soul, remember, you're no longer chasing light, you've become it. Everything ahead of you now glows with quiet. Ria diamad purpose. And now, chosen one, we reach the quiet edge of this journey. You've walked through fire, through tears, through revelation, and still, the light within you has not dimmed. This is not the end of your story. It's the unfolding of a new beginning. If these words have found their way into your heart, let that not be coincidence. Maybe heaven arranged this moment so you would remember your strength, your worth, your calling. Every breath you take now is a continuation of the message. You are proof that grace still wins. If your heart feels stirred, show it gently. Tap like as a simple whisper to heaven, saying, I received this. That one small gesture helps this message travel to someone who's standing where you once stood in silence, waiting for a sign of hope. Share this message as you would share bread on a hungry road. You never know who might need this same light to find their way home. Your share could be the torch that rekindles faith in a weary soul. Write a comment, whatever your spirit wants to say. Words have power. They plant seeds. Maybe your sentence will be the line someone reads right before they decide to keep going. Subscribe, not as a habit, but as a commitment to growth. Think of it as keeping a candle lit in your heart. A promise to stay connected to reminders that strengthen your faith when the world grows cold. And finally, if your spirit feels led to donate, let it flow naturally, like pouring water into soil that has fed you. You're not paying for words. You're partnering in the mission to keep light alive. Every seed you plant extends the reach of hope further than you can imagine. Go in peace now. Carry this stillness with you. Let the fire stay gentle, the heart stay open, and the love you've found here ripple into every corner of your world.